But today we are going to do something a bit different. Or with Neo1186 we have had, I think this is our third coaching session, and we have always had a bit of a different session. And for this coaching session, Neo did record a video on his play on 4 sit-and-go tables, and he commented on the tables as well. So we are going to think about Neo's thought process on how he approaches the situations, and we'll try to see if there are some leaks that would be easy to fix. So, and I think from the beginning we should ask Neo that how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
And how has poker been treating you?
I would say pretty good. Now that I added again $3.50 tables to my play, I think what's good is that I'm about break even, so it wasn't a downturn like last time. So I think it's okay at the moment.
So you are winning a bit after the rake back right now on 350s. But that's great to hear that you are moving up, and I see that you are, in this video we are having 2 $1.50 tables, and then there are 2 $3.50 tables. And I haven't looked through this whole video, I have looked through only the first 5 minutes or so, and I think we will see that there is still money in the micros. And so we are having the hands also on Hold'em resources, so we can look a bit deeper on those. And if you have any questions on the chat, you can always ask. So, and if Neo has any questions, you can just say it, and then we can have a discussion about whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let me just mention that it was really hard to play poker and to explain myself at the same time in good English, so I'm sorry for that.
I don't think that you should be too ashamed. I think that there are some good spots, and I think that there will be good spots because you needed to focus on some situation. So so we can also see that what situations are hard for you when you are playing. So that's what we are looking forward today. And also when we can look through the situations that you find hard, then we can also focus on improving. Improving
that's
on those.
That's also why I picked this video, because there were some situations where I think I made mistakes or didn't play that well. I mean, I made other videos where things ran a bit better, or where I was even better thinking, I would say, but I think it's better to focus on a video where I think I didn't do that great.
I think there are some good points in both, that if you are always focusing on your mistakes, it can make poker quite demoralizing if you are focusing on the mistakes. So, but I think that there will be a lot of good in this video as well. So, I think we can start playing the video, and I'm trying to go a bit faster on the spots that there practically nothing happens or there are no commentary. So, and I have a cheat sheet of all the VLC's hotkeys, so it might go well, and I hope it will go well, but it should be a bit more interesting to see the whole video and whole action. And if on chat someone wants to ask about something, there shouldn't be any delay or just 20 seconds or something, so you can pretty easily ask just what's going on. So let's carry on.
Okay.
Hey, this is Neo1186. I'm doing another one of my sessions for the coaching with Aarnimetsa for PokerMania.com. I'm 4-tabling. 2 tables are $1.50, 2 are $3.50. And
the sound for the video seems to be very low on my end.
Yeah.
So let's go.
That seems to be a slight problem. I did increase the volume as high as I can on on the video. Let's see how it works for when there is more commentary on the video.
Okay. Can you hear it okay, the video?
Let's wait a while.
Okay.
Still waiting for the first table to show up. First table to... Still waiting for the first table to show up.
It's a bit low on this end as well. I'm trying to fix it. Sorry about that. Always the more technology you are using, the harder it becomes getting everything to work at the same time.
Maybe I can answer some questions from the chat. Shackle asks how many tables I play. I normally play 6 tables. And Chip Leader asks if the fold to flop bet stud is it raised pot. Actually, I'm not sure if I know that. I mean, the stud just says flop bet, fold to flop bet.
I think that it doesn't discriminate on. It doesn't discriminate on is it a raised pot or not. So it's all the fold to flop bets, and it's not the fold to flop raise. So it's when you are folding to the first flop bet. And Radeka, this will be a 2-hour coaching approximately. We are going to have about 10-minute break in the middle. So I tried to increase the volume on the video, but it might be really hard for Neo for you to hear yourself. So actually I don't know that can you even get voice from join me. But we'll try the sound. I increased it a lot, so I'm really sorry if something goes terribly wrong.
Was able to show up. Yeah, I can hear myself now. It's a bit low, but I can hear it.
Okay. There's a lot of static in the video right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because of the 20 volt, I think I can cause this.
And there was the first thing that you said, that we are over 20 times. We have over 20 times, so we can call this set mining. And this is a spot when there are 3 players ahead of you. There's 1 race and 2 limps that I think that you can even go lower. I think somewhere around 600 chips would be still okay. Because when there are 3 players ahead of you, it will increase the likelihood that someone will go broke in the table.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that this is really a good spot to call behind, even with less BBs, because there are so many other players already in the pot. And also, if you are having a better hand, let's say you are having somewhat like pair of 10s and you are on the big blind, this is also that the pot starts to be so big that you can almost have a profitable shove here. So it will be interesting because the pot will get so big after so many callers.
If I would be in the big blind with ace queen and there would be so much money in the pot, should I shove with cards like that, ace queen, ace king?
I think
with pocket pairs?
I think that you can shove ace queen, but I think that it would be probably more profitable, especially if it's ace queen suited, to just call and play strong when you are hitting a... Because when there are so many callers and limpers, it increases the likelihood that someone will be there with a weaker raise to pay you off if you hit. But someone like a pair of tens or a pair of jacks, they are like 1/2 of the time you are having an overcard to the table, so they will be a lot harder to play, but they will be profitable to shove. And they will be profitable to be set mining as well. I just think that they will be more profitable to do something. And this is a special case of a special case, that there are 5, or there are raiser and 4 callers, so this doesn't happen so often. But usually I say that when the raise size is about 10 times, or you are having about 10 times or less than what the raise size is, you should be thinking about shoving. And in these situations when there are 1,500 chips and pot is already 230. So Radeka, I'm sorry that Neo's voice is a bit broken, because I need to have the video sound really high for you to hear it for some reason. I hope that my sound is still okay. But let's carry on, because there are some interesting spots next to this.
And we hit a set here. Here, pocket aces, I will 3x. Well, now it's interesting how to get the most money out of this.
And I think this is... Did you hear on the stream that could you hear anything what Neo said in here? I'm trying to find that out first. Because if you can't find out anything what Neo said, I'm going to say the key points and then carry on. And then it only requires for me to hear what Neo says. And the problem is that the Skype call that we are in with Neo right now, it comes from the same voice channel as this video's voice. And for some reason Neo's Skype call is pretty loud. Actually, we can try something a bit different right now. And we are having a technical 1-minute break right now. But we'll be back pretty soon. But this is now a situation where you have hit a set. There is one opener and one caller, and you are thinking about raising here. Could you elaborate a bit more on why you want to raise here? And
I think that when there are so many people in the pot, that there will be someone who is drawing towards the flush. And I think it could make sense here to raise to protect my set from that, or to make him pay more for trying to.
There is one point that how big would you make a re-raise here?
Not too big, just pretty small, I think. Maybe so a min raise, I would say.
I don't think that min raise would be good here, because it will, at least for a good player, it will look like value a lot. So I would prefer, actually here I would prefer calling, because that might make the players behind you play worse. Then they can carry on and put more money in the pot. So that's something that I would be pretty often just calling here. And if a flush hits, if the opponents are betting really small, you still get odds to call, especially if there are multiple people in the pot. And calling for having the full house. So I think that calling here is slightly better than re-raising.
If a flush draw would hit on the board and there's heavy action, should I then give up the hand?
Let's say if there is something like Jack of Hearts or Queen of Hearts or King of Hearts, I think then it would make more sense to give up if you are facing a more than a half a pot bet on the turn, and you are not getting additional callers to that, because then there will be straights and flushes both. But I probably wouldn't fold to a... Depends on if all the 5 players are in, and then you are getting heavy action for something like a 5 of Hearts. Then it's quite likely that the opponent has a flush. But I think that opponents, even if they hit their flush, they are not value betting strong enough in general. And if I would be raising here, I would be doing it to somewhere around 450, because then I can get the money in on the turn, even if just one people calls.
Mm-hmm. Okay. They are drawing towards the flush, so I think I make a min raise here to get a bit more money out of it. So I'm not sure, maybe it would have been better to just call. But I'm pretty sure at least someone here is drawing towards something, so...
And here it's the min raise that, in this kind of situation, that if you are re-raising, you want to be re-raising a bit stronger than that, and if you are calling, you want to induce the guys behind you, or the guy behind you to act and call. There are 2 guys still behind you, and if you are raising, I'd prefer a larger sizing. Mm-hmm. So the min raise pretty much, it scares the people behind away, and then it doesn't do anything to make these guys pay for the flush draw, because the flush draw will still be there with a pretty decent price.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think Ace King here, again, difficult situation.
Actually, we are having a lot more problems with the video than I thought.
If I just call this, I guess drawing.
And now we are having a top left, mm-hmm. that you are saying that the Ace King is difficult.
Yeah.
Difficult situation for you. Could you tell me a bit more why this is a difficult situation?
One problem is that he just min raises, and if I just call here, then it's very likely that there will be a lot of people behind who will also just call, and there will be a lot of people in the hand, and I think my Ace King will lose value because of that. And on the other hand, I'm not sure if this is a good spot to ISO raise, because he's UTG, so I'm not sure. That would be the problem, yeah.
I think that this would be a situation that if our opponent raises like 4x here, it would be a really easy call. But when our opponent just min raises, I would prefer ISO raising here. Even though he's from UTG, he has played 3 out of the 4 hands right now. And even though we can't take a lot of info from just 4 hands, we can probably think that he's probably not a tight player. So I think that his UTG opening range should be wider than general players.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, that if you call here, it will likely be a multi-way pot, and Ace King doesn't play that well.
Mm-hmm.
And now that there is also the situation on the 3s, and we can actually go a bit forward here, but I think in here, I think the optimal would be to 3-bet to somewhere around 100 to make it a 2 or 3-way pot instead of the likely 4-way pot if you just call.
Okay. Towards something there will be more callers behind me. On the other side, I'm not sure if I want to make an ISO raise here, so I think I will just call here. I think again I will make a re-raise. He looks like he hit something, and with my set I go for pro.
On the bottom right, there is a situation that the opponent raised for 345 out of I think 1,200 chips in the pot, and you had 1,100 chips behind. Why did you min re-raise him?
I wanted to get more money in the pot, but I don't want it to get him to fold.
I think that
makes sense, yeah.
I think that when he bets 300 to a pot that's about 1,100 and there's only 800 more for him to call, I think that you are going to get a call anyway. With some creative hands, that there are now a lot of combo draws, that someone might have a pair and a draw. So there are so many combinations that I would just shove it now. Like if he has some kind of a draw, then you will get some money from him now. And if he just calls there might still be that if he misses his draw, that you won't get the money all in. I will have another really small technical break, and I'm trying to improve the situation with the video. And in the top left that you are calling, and I think for the trees hand to go back to it on the flop, I think that either calling or raising bigger than a min raise would be the optimal line. Depends on the people behind you, and I actually think that when there are two people already in the pot, raising for something like 450 to 600 would be the best one. And on the top left, that you said that you will be going for broke, and I think that's going to be a good idea, especially against this shorter stack, and that there are some draws that are available, or there are quite a lot of draws available, so that increases the likelihood that you are not against just sets here. But I'd agree that you are thinking about calling this, then I think that's probably going to be the best option. Even if the flush comes through, you are having the nut flush draw on the river, so that shouldn't bother you that much.
Okay.
And Radeka asked you a question on the chat.
Do I have stable profit on $1.50 sit-and goes? Well, that really depends. I mean, not in the past, and I think I'm not sure if the sample size is big enough to answer the question. I mean, how many tournaments do I need to answer that question?
I think that if you are looking at your EV-adjusted graph, you will be needing about 1,000 sit-and-goes at least to have an idea. It depends that you might even, if you are having like 10% EV-adjusted after 500 games, then you can be quite certain that you are beating the games. But if you are having something like 2% after 1,000 games, it's still up for debate. But if you are having 5% after 1,000 games, it will be pretty solid. And from just results, I think that it will require something like 3,000 games to have the similar idea on are you a winning player or not. And of course that when you have improved your game a lot and improving it constantly, it's hard to say.
Yeah. So I would say that's still up for debate.
But let's carry on. This ace king should be pretty interesting.
We'll just causes. Maybe he will call it as well, but he folded against this short stick here. I have to go for broke. Good.
And this is an interesting situation against this Archie Petro guy. That when he shoves the turn, what do you think about his range there. Is it a strong or a weak range?
I mean, it could be pretty polarized, I'm not sure. I mean, if he's a pretty bad player, maybe he hits the queen or even something like ace queen. I'm not sure.
I think
But
that
I think of his range, yep.
I think that even against fishy players, I think that this is somewhat not polarized, and this is almost always a meddling hand. This is almost always this is almost never a great hand for the opponent when he shoves a lot. And with a top pair top kicker, I would be calling this. Actually, I would be calling this actually with pretty many aces. So this is a. I'm trying to think that could I fold practically any ace here. Ace king I would be calling for sure, or ace jack, or of course all the two pair hands. But because he shouldn't have a strong hand when he bets so large, because with a very strong hand people are wanting to get more money in the pot, and they will be likely to be calling, or they will be likely to be betting smaller.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this made your game a lot simpler when he just shoves here. It makes it pretty simple to play this hand well against him.
He said unbeat here, but I think top pair, top kicker. And sadly it is 5. But I think I played this correctly.
And that's actually one key, that you played it completely correctly. You got the money in really well. I think against his range, you got it pretty well. That against his range that will include some queens and tens, you are slightly worse off than when you are dominating an ace completely.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that you are getting it in here with something like 70% equity. And when you are getting it in, you are not making a mistake, and you shouldn't be that bothered if he outdraws you on the last card. It's just that you will win in the long run, so that's key.
Have a look at this hand here. Just have a look at this hand here.
This is actually one of these hands that it doesn't have any strategic meaning, but it's really good that Neo took this hand out when he found something weird was going on, because this is a prime opportunity to make a note. And this hand goes for the cutoff opens, Skull Larger calls, Martin Kucci shoves. It was like opens to 60, calls 60, shove 1500. And this Skull Larger calls with King Deuce suited. And Radeka and Shakal, I'm going to be pausing this video a lot, so we are not playing live. This is a pre-recorded video, so I'm pausing and restarting it a lot. So sorry about that, and it might make it a bit harder to follow, but it's better than to play live right now, because then there won't be any mistakes on on talking about the hand while it's going on, and then there are also when we can stop, then we can go deeper into one situation.
And he calls an all-in with king 2.
And that was great that you made the note instantly. And as you can see that you can make notes while you are in a replayer, so that will increase the effectiveness that you can utilize the replayer a lot. Waiting for some commentary.
Here we much with the next effect. And here I will fold this fence. Here we can't do much with 10 9 suited. And here I will fold this file.
I think this folding the 10-9 suited, I think it's okay. So I think it's quite borderline that I think that on average you can play something like Jack-10 suited. Jack-10 suited profitably, but they are going to be thin edges, especially on the first level, so shouldn't matter that much.
Okay. And here it doesn't make any sense to complete with king 2.
I agree, doesn't make any sense to complete with king deuce. If it would be suited, you might think about it, but king deuce off. Nope.
Here it's not going to be a
I'm actually trying to remove the webcam, so it makes my computer a bit less stressed.
Maybe we missed an interesting hand there. On the bottom left there was I had pocket fives on the button, I think.
Let's go back a bit. Couldn't find it quickly.
Okay, don't worry.
Nah, there will be some interesting spots, I hope, because now we are on a phase in the video that I haven't seen before.
Mm-hmm. Here we got much with the nice effect, and the other foot one. And here doesn't make the sense to complete with control.
Might be actually this next hand.
Yeah, there it is.
Let's wait for a while. So, what should you do here?
I mean, normally a steel race would be good, But the problem is that the blinds are very call happy and that pocket fives plays horrible post flop. I mean, I could maybe play this as kind of an active set mining.
I think that in general I would be almost always opening this. So that would be something that I would almost always open, and we have only 9 hands on our opponent, so we don't know how call happy they are completely. I think you can limp this. I think raising is a bit better, and it's so that you are... Actually, it's a hard one, because I think that when you are having position, you are also winning some pots post-flop that you don't win by the fact that you are having the pair of fives there. And it's easier to win those pots when you are against one player instead of 2 players. And it will be quite likely that it's against 2 opponents if you are just calling here. And it's great that Chacal switched the browser and it works. You can also use the Twitch's pop-out or then the embedded player. I think that they are different players, so sometimes the other player works and the other player doesn't. So you should try to check what works for your computer. But let's...
Here against those call happy guys in the blinds, I think I will just fold pocket fives here.
I think that's something that you will lose value in the long run. I'd say that folding is not a good option there, because even though fives is a hard hand to play post flop, also the dealer button is the best place to start opening your ranges up, because on post flop it's a huge advantage for you to be able to play post flop with position. So I think that that's a mistake, and it's also a mistake for learning purposes as well, because on the button you should open a lot and learn the post flop by first playing a lot in position.
And here's this guy open limps. Not much information on him. I think I will just raise over the limps. Or the limper and the guy who completed. I think 90 is a good size.
I think that you should raise a bit higher. You are having a pretty decent hand, so I would be 105 to 120. And there is already one limper, and then there's the other guy that just calls. So this would be a raise for value, and it would be a bit bigger for me.
Okay. Maybe I could have made it even a bit more.
And as you said.
It's really good that we 2 pair here, because this guy may be trapping. I'm not sure. Sometimes people play really fancy. Because of the flush, I think I make it a bit over half pot.
I agree with you that you are betting a bit over half a pot, especially when you are the pre-flop aggressor. If this would have been that this guy would have opened and you would have called, then I would have preferred a check and let the opponent bet into you. But now I think that bet will be a bit better. And I don't think that you should be afraid of flushes here, because if a flush card comes, you are having a not flush draw. So you are like not that bothered of a flush draw in here, because you are having the ace of clubs.
Okay. And I will have forwards.
Some good cards in.
Here I'm maybe thinking about calling, but the problem is that I guess if he's so tight, I think his overall range here should be so tight that I think I will be behind with ace check.
That's actually something that I want to talk about a bit. against the AdSense boy, you should be looking at his stats of raise first in instead of PFR. So how often he's raising first in. And we can see that his cutoff steal is about 20%, so it might be. But I think that with ace jack I think that you are a bit ahead of his range that will be around 15 to 20%. I think. So, and you are going to have position, so this is one of the spots that I think that it's going to be plus EV to be calling the opponent. And this is like, if the opponent raises first, you should be looking for raise first statistic instead of PFR. PFR, it groups everything together. Like if but the raise first in is only looking for unopened spots. So it's a more applicable stat in this situation.
And if this goes post flop and he stays aggressive, and let's say I hit an ace, how worried should I be that he has a better ace?
It depends a lot, and this is something that you learn. And I think that I would be at least calling for one street, and if the opponent carries on the turn, then I might be folding. But I think that in general, especially when our opponent seems to be a reg and he seems to be betting a lot of flops, so I would think that our opponent will probably bet a lot of also his misses.
Okay.
And Chakal says that ace jack is too strong to fold. I agree with Jack. And if you are scared of calling and be dominated, is 3-bet fold not a good option? 3-bet fold would probably be a better option if you would be like, this situation would be that the opponent opens on the cutoff or hijack and you are in the small blind, so you don't have the position advantage. But when you are having the position advantage for the next reach, I think that calling is a bit better than 3-bet folding. And if you are afraid that your opponent will be dominating you, then it's just looking like, even this AdSense boy, that I think that you can look through all of his hands, that like put him as a hero on your Hold'em manager and look through his hands, like what kind of hands does this kind of reg show, that like show only hands that you know. I don't remember it completely what is it in Hold'em Manager 2, only like it's like show known hands button or something.
Yeah, I think something like that, yeah.
And yeah, Shakal, the 3-bet fold, it's a completely correct term there. I think it's a bit harder if you 3-bet, the opponent just calls, and then when you are hitting an ace, there are on opponent's range, then when he just calls the 3-bet, there shouldn't be any weaker aces. So I think with 3-betting, there is a spot for it, but when you are having position, I wouldn't be 3-betting. Let's carry on.
Okay. But here with pocket jacks we have a UTG raiser and a re-raiser. I'm out of position, but I think I can call this.
This is also an interesting spot on the 350. That if you are thinking this as a set mining opportunity, would this be a good set mining opportunity for you?
Well, I'm not sure if I thought about a set mining opportunity.
What is your plan with jacks then if you are calling here? That you are having a UTG open, a min 3-bet on the button, and you are out of position with jacks.
Well, I mean, I think I would re-evaluate on the flop. Like, if there is no ace, no king, then I think I have the best hand in that situation.
Yes, I think that in this situation it's like jacks, there are a lot more value than just set mining value. But I think that with jacks there is going to be some problems post flop, and I'm a bit unsure. This might be also a profitable shove because our opponents are so short, and this opponent is playing on a tablet, which usually means that he's not that good of a player.
Mm-hmm. And flop. Now the problem with jacks is that I could be up against queens, kings, aces, and in that case I would be pretty screwed. And on the other side, maybe he had tens or pocket sixes or something, so I'm not sure here.
I think that this is a great opportunity to check if you are thinking that you are having the best hand, but I think that one of these opponents should be betting here.
Mm-hmm.
No matter if they are just having overcards. Because there was a flop, pre-flop there is, but it's a real likelihood that one of these opponents is going to have jacks or better pair. Because of the UTG open that usually narrows the opponent's range to somewhere around 6 to 7% if you don't know the opponent. And then there's this guy that just minimum 3 bets, which usually means that there will be a pretty strong hand. But that's actually more polarized because it can mean a really strong hand or a really weak hand or a medium hand.
Mm-hmm.
But let's see now how the re-evaluate on the flop goes. This is pretty much this is a pretty good flop for you.
And this guy continues aggressively. I mean, he could just make a c-bet with, like with ace king, ace queen, which he missed. Or I could be up against aces, kings, queens. I think I have to call this.
Yeah, I agree with your explanations completely. On the jack hand thus far, let's carry on and see how it goes.
Ace check here, I think.
Now we are on the next hand on the top left.
I think I will just shove this.
I think the ace jack, it's an excellent shove still. It's pretty much on the middle that you can min raise that or you can shove it. But I wouldn't be raising more than a min raise here because your stack depth is so low at this point.
There's no time for that. I mean, he could also be drawing, so there's a lot that beats me here. But it's interesting that he just checks here. So I think I have to take a stab at the pot, and if he shoves because of the odds, I have to call. But I think he showed weakness by checking.
I think in that kind of situation with jacks on the river, I think that when your opponent shows weakness, it might mean one of two things. Either a better player could check when he has some showdown equity, and then you can just value bet quite mercilessly and you can even shove there. But in general, I think that opponent is having a... Well, I think even general players are, when they're checking back, they are having something. And then there are like two options that do you bet really small, like betting half a pot and then making it easier on yourself because you always need to call and it's always mathematically correct. I don't think that's the best option. I think that if you want to induce, you are betting small, and if you want to bet for value against your opponent's likely pair of 9s, 8s, or ace 10 or king 10, then you are going to be shoving and you are getting a bit more value.
Mhm.
But that's something that if you are thinking that your opponent is really weak here, then an inducer might sometimes induce a call from something like ace king. And it should be actually interesting to see what the per hazard mucks here.
Now I'm really interested what he had. Because that he calls and just calls, and he called me with ace king. Wow. I mean, I can kind of see that he stayed in the hand because he...
And I don't think that that's really that hard for the opponent to call with ace king. I think that it's more likely that the opponent will call with ace king or ace queen if you are betting something like 200 to 250 instead of a half pot bet, which also means more than half of the opponent's stack.
Mhm.
But if you are inducing, you also need to be calling if the opponent is turning his hand into a bluff. And there is also jacks now on the top right, so good hands all the time.
Got a flush draw here with king, but still it's... or maybe...
Actually, one question for you.
Mhm.
How does a green fish and blue fish differ?
A green fish, I mean, they're both bad players, but a green fish is more passive. He calls too much. He plays generally passively. He's also a bit more reliable on the bubble. So when I shove into him, I know that he doesn't do anything idiotic. A blue fish, on the other hand, is close to a maniac. So he bluffs a lot. He's very aggressive, even if he doesn't have anything. And he's also very unreliable. When I shove into him on the bubble, I know that I have to tighten up. That's also the difference I made between those two.
That's an interesting difference, and when you are marking the players by just one hand, it might require some reclassification after some time, and I think that's the problem of having too many markings, because then you need to move the opponents a lot between the markings. But it's also when you don't see the HUD yet, or there's something that you are marking with a label that you can't see from the HUD, then I think it might be good to have a lot of options.
Maybe a blue one. Here, I'm out of position. I think I will make a standard c-bet and get out of the hand if he doesn't fold.
How likely do you think that the opponent is folding on the jack's hand on the top right?
I don't have much information on him, but I think he should fold more than 50%.
I think in this kind of situation, if you are bet folding this all the time, I think you are wasting equity, and I think checking here would be better with jacks, because with betting you are either giving free money to someone with a club draw that they are turning into a semi bluff and re-raising you, or you are isolating yourself against mostly queens, and you are having a lot of showdown equity, and you could have some opportunity of getting your opponent to bluff. So I think this would be a spot to check instead of c-bet with the jacks. I don't think that you should have that much worry about winning the pot right here, right now, because jack should be a pretty solid hand, and there is only like kings and aces that you need to really worry about.
Okay. And here we can shove for 14. 10-5 off, can't do much either. And king 10 off is way below my opening from this position.
I think everything sounds...
UTG +1.
Everything sounds pretty good. That king 10 off shouldn't be opened.
I would have opened ace king off, ace queen suited, and pocket tens from this position.
I think that you...
This stage of the game.
I think that you can open something like ace jack suited, ace queen, and you can open from 8s up at least, I think. From UTG +1 and when there's 7 players behind you. So I think that there might be something that you can tune a bit. Like I think that you might be a bit too tight on the early on.
Okay.
And that's something that's hard to find out if I'm just looking at the hand history and trying to find the hands that you have lost or won most, or having something like the HRC going through its phases, because it doesn't look at these hands that you are more than 30 big blinds deep. So those might be hard to see, and I think that you should be opening a bit more of your UTG range and see how it works.
Okay.
And actually one more point that's really good, that when you are making a video, you are trying to think out loud what would your range be in that spot. And that's really good.
Yeah, I think I'm not deep enough to complete. Maybe if it would have been suited.
I think with suited 9-8 it would be a good complete.
Yeah, against this guy who just lived to me. Not much information on him, but I think with Ace Queen, because he has... I mean, maybe I should just make a normal raise here.
I agree with you. If your opponent would have had something like 12 big blinds, you can shove. But I think that it's better equity to make it 3x and then play aggressively.
Okay.
So I think that you made a good option, even though you started out with the worst one.
Now I wish I would have just shoved it.
But it shouldn't be, because I think in here there is value still in calling, that the opponent looks like a bit of a maniac, and if the opponent limp calls, there should be some jack hands that are hitting, but the opponent shouldn't be hitting 3s or deuces.
Mm.
So I think your hand is still quite strong.
He dunks here. I mean, he could have nothing. Flop looks pretty dry, but I think I was folded, but I think a fold here is better.
I think that really depends on if your opponent is a really needy player, then a fold there is better, but a really needy player shouldn't be limp calling. And even though now you lost some money by small raise, but there will also be easier spots that you are getting. So that was a really nasty spot when your opponent also dunk bets, and he shouldn't have pretty much anything. So that's a hard spot, because I don't think that on the flop we can already know that our opponent is having a check.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much nothing else makes sense there. So, and even if he would have had something like a small pocket pair, I think it would be more likely that if he limps, he can see you raise, that the small pocket pair or small to medium pocket pairs will just then shove over you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really weird hand, because only hands that make sense are jacks, and there shouldn't be that many jacks in his range. So, but a really weird hand, and your opponent putting pressure on you is something that you, most of the time, you don't see. And now when you saw it, it just, well, ship happens, but you can't do much about it. But that doesn't mean that you didn't do the, I think, the best option pre-flop.
Okay.
And that also comes that I have said sometimes that it might be better that you are a bit more tighter if you are making a lot of post-flop mistakes, because in that kind of situation, if you are a good post-flop player, you can get more equity against opponents. But if you need to hit to win the pot, then shoving it makes it easier, but then it also makes it pretty hard for you to develop the post-flop game if you are always shoving on those.
Okay. And here ace 4 suited. Can't do much. Very tight player here. And here I will also just fold.
With ace 10 without position, I think folding is okay.
Here we have one limper. I'm in small blind. I have 9-8 suited, which I think is a bottom of what I can complete here.
I think that's also a good complete.
This time we're lucky we hit 2 pair. Here I think I will try a steal raise, see what he does, how he reacts. Here I will make a small bet.
Why are you making a small bet when you are heading 2 pairs on the bottom left?
To get some money in the pot and to, I mean, I don't want to set say just check and get another free card, because the flop is also a bit draw heavy. Maybe that.
I just think that it would be pretty likely that the opponents are going to be betting this flop, because when they have limped and called, it's quite likely that they will hit something here. So I think that you are not going to get more money in the pot this way than letting the opponents bet. But we'll see. Should be interesting.
And here, not much information on him. I will try bet here.
Now it starts to go more interesting. On the ace 4, I agree. A bet there is good. And that's also how you are getting them pots that you are raising. And if your opponents are calling too much pre-flop, but they're folding post-flop, they're also good opponents for you. That even though if they are calling pre-flop, but if they're always folding post-flop, you will make money on these situations by just being pretty relentless and giving the opponents pressure.
Okay. And here I think I will go for broke. I think I should just call. Maybe he will join in as well.
And this is interesting in a way, because when the English re-raises, I'm pretty inclined to be just shoving here. Because then we'll get the money in against English, and there are a lot of gut shots. There are a lot of flush draws. Something like king, queen, ace, queen that the opponent can go for broke. So, and I don't think that we are inducing the remaining player to remain in the pot often enough.
Yeah. And ace queen here I will open.
And this will be interesting on the bottom left.
Yeah. Oh god. This is really the worst hands that can hit here. Straight draw, flush draw, complete. Well, I think I have to give this up.
And that is about the worst card that can hit. It completes every possible draw, and you were having a great hand on the flop, but on the turn not so much.
Yeah.
And actually there might be an interesting hand that we missed. Trying to go. And what do you think about the bottom right corner, the King 10 suited?
This may be a spot where I could make a steal raise, but again, I think the problem I'm always having is that there are lines there who call everything and are maybe a bit hard to play post flop if I don't hit anything.
But I think with King 10 suited, it will be quite likely that you are having a decent hand. So I think that this is one of those hands that it's easier to play post-flop with two big cards that are suited and quite connected. So this would be an easy hand to play post-flop as well, and you are having a decent position. So this would be something that I wouldn't be folding in this kind of situation.
Okay.
That I would be opening. And as you can probably hear here, that it's really... sometimes it's really close, and also it's sometimes like when you are getting space for your opponents to bet, and when you are betting yourself, that's something that requires a lot of practice and a lot of thinking about situation, that is it better to bet or is it better to give the opponent spots to play bad. So it's like, it's not only spotting the mistakes your opponents make, it's also about giving your opponent space to make those mistakes. So that's also something that's really important.
Well, I think I have to give this up. I can't call this. Damn it. And here we have an overpair to the flop. I think I will play this pretty aggressively. Here I don't think I can shove. And it worries me a bit that he stayed in the hand. He could have played this for set value, and there are a lot of smaller cards here.
On the top right, I don't think that when you open pre-flop that your opponent from the big blind is playing the hand for set value. I would be more afraid of a straight here, because it requires only 1-7 in the opponent's hand to have a straight. That's what I would be more afraid here. But I think that when I'm having an overpair here, it's still going to be quite hard to give up. When 9 also hits, then it's also, what are you beating if you're... Actually, it's a really hard hand, because when you are checking the turn, you are also inviting your opponent to bluff. But if your opponent calls with a lot of hands on the big blind that are connected smallish hands that a 32/18 player can call, it's going to be hard, because I think I'm kind of divided that if opponent is bluffing enough, he needs to be bluffing less than 1 in 3 or about 1 in 3, because there's some ICM effects are pretty strong. But he needs to be bluffing only about 1 in 3, and there might be some hands that your opponent might think that they are good, even though they aren't. So this is a hard one, because I think you are pretty close in. Can you bluff catch or
4, 5, 6, 7. since there's a lot of stuff that beats us. But I think this time I have to call. I should have called here.
I think that is a spot that I think that the ace queen suited previously, even though you only had a high card hand there, I think that would be an easier call than this one on the river, this tens. Because I think it's a profitable call, but I don't think that it's so straightforward.
Oh, okay, would have called here. Not sure if it was the right choice.
But I agree with you that it's not an easy choice.
Here we have pretty much nothing, only a gut shot. And here I'm thinking of maybe shoving, button cut off, high check. I think I'm a bit too deep.
On the bottom left, would you have shoved ace-6 suited?
Yeah, from that position I would have shoved a6 suited.
Good. I think that this video might take a bit longer time to go through. So I'd say that can we have a 5-minute break now and come back at half past 10, or I think it's 9:30 in Germany.
Yeah, we can.
And actually Chakal asked that where are you from, because you sound so much like a German speaking English. But we can we can come back to it after the break. So let's have a small break and we'll be back at 5:30.